In this excerpt from High Tide, we find ourselves in the business professor's classroom at Seaport Community College. His engaging style of teaching gets briefly tangled with the unintended pun of a sincere student named Rocket. "There's no such thing as a second first impression," he writes the statement on the board next to "There are no rules." And laughingly comments that since there are always exceptions to rules, there are no exceptions, and there are exceptions to no rules. So what we're saying here is that how we come across is at least as important as what we have to say. The great cultural historian, critic, and oracle Marshall McLuhan says, the medium is the message. Think about that. The medium is the message. People judge you by how tall you stand, by how attentive you are, by your eye contact, by how clearly you speak, and if you speak up loudly enough or not. They judge you by your handshake and your smile. Always in motion, he speaks as he strides around the room. How many of you want to do business with someone who looks over your shoulder while you're talking to her or him, who mumbles like he or she has a mouthful of peanut butter, who smirks instead of smiles, or who has a handshake that feels like a dead flounder? "Fluke," says Rocket, a bright young man named for his 4th of July birthday. What's that, Rocket? Why would you think that what I said is a fluke? It's true." "No, you're from New York. What do you know? You haven't been living here in these parts long enough. Fluke is what we mostly catch around here when we go fishing, not flounder." The room explodes in laughter. "Right," grins Maddigan, realizing the unintended pun. "So, a handshake that feels like a dead fluke, right? And how do we know the difference, Rocket, between the fluke and the flounder?" "Well, one has both eyes on one side and the other has one eye on each side." "Well, great. So which one's which?" "Well, they're both fish," he says with utmost sincerity, "but whichever one's not a flounder is a fluke." Now the class is in an uproar. Grinning as much as the student's earnestness at his response, Maddigan continues to meander around the chair-bordered inner circle, waiting for the laughter to die down. "Okay, thank you, Rocket. I'll remember that distinction. Now, if we can get back to the subject of how we come across, and I'm not talking about being ramrod straight like a West Pointer, or staring at someone like you have X-ray vision, or being too loud or overbearing, or giving a bone crusher handshake. I'm talking about coming across to others the way you want others to come across to you. Good business practices require good judgment and good communication skills, which in my business life have often proven to be even more important than the actual words you say. We can deduce a great deal about the management of a company, for example, by examining the kinds of marketing its management creates. That is, what do their market messages say? We also need to look at what? The ways that those messages are communicated. That is, what media are used, how and when are they used, and who uses them. I want you to explore how you market yourselves, how you come across to others, based just on how you present yourself to others. Ask them to tell you what musical instrument you remind them of, and what types of animal or reptile they equate you with. Are you a flute? That's a flute with a T, Rocket, not a fluke. Or are you a tuba, a harp, a bass drum, a wolf, a bull, a snake, a pussycat, a weasel? Are you coming across to others the way you want to? Or do the musical instrument and creature comparisons that you get back surprise you? Stop yourself every time you engage another person and ask yourself what you're learning about yourself at that moment. Write it down. He works his way to center stage. Crouched slightly, he wheels deliberately around with his right arm outstretched and his forefinger pointing in a slow sweep toward attentive faces. What are you learning about yourself right this minute? Write it down. Right this minute, I am learning about myself that I blank. Fill it in. Go ahead. Finish the sentence. Put it down on paper. There's no right or wrong. You're not going to turn these in. The first thought you have is fine. I'll wait. He pauses, then resumes circling the circle. Watching the surge of nervous scribbling, he asks some to share their learnings and thanks each one who does, even the 2 or 3 with wise guy responses. The reason we want to learn more about what makes each of us tick is that it will help us get to know and understand others better. It is having that knowledge and understanding that is the blanket under all of marketing and management, and in fact, all of life. So the more you know about yourself, the further you will go in both life and business.